is not a wood. The cross is a mystery. A mystery that God himself instituted. And the reality of this mystery is that the cross is a place where there was an end. And that place where there was an end became a new beginning. It was the place where the end of the old creation was established. And it was also the place where the journey of the new creation began. So the cross is the place of death, yet it is the place of the resurrection. And so it's important for a believer to have a thorough understanding of the mystery of the cross. When you are dealing with the subject of the cross, there is a historical dimension, because historians also know something about the cross. If you ask a historian about the mystery, the operation of the cross, he will tell you it is the system of judgment of the Romans, that when they want to give a criminal the highest form of judgment, they introduce the cross as a deterrent to any other person who wants to imagine that crime. When you saw the way a man was crucified, he was mutilated to a point where he loses the essence of humanity. It is the biggest judgment that humanity has ever known. And so from a historical perspective, the cross reveals a type of judgment. In fact, the word excruciating, which is the definition of the highest kind of pain, was derived from the word cruciate. And the word cruciate is from the word cruci. And the word cruci is the word crucifixion. So when we talk about the cross, we are trying to define the highest form of pain that humanity can ever experience. And it was a form of judgment that the Romans gave to the highest kind of criminals. So that's a historical perspective. But what we are gathered here to celebrate is not the judgment of the Romans. Because beyond the judgment of the Romans, there is a spiritual dimension to the cross. Because in the context of divinity, there is a concept called atonement. In the concept of atonement, when sin is committed, a price must be paid in order for sin to be removed. Because spirits cannot forgive. No spirit has the capacity to forgive. Not God, not Satan. When a spirit tells you, I have forgiven you, you need to understand that a price has been paid for your offense. And so when God was dealing with humanity, he wanted to forgive man. But you see, because forgiveness is not a possibility, God needed a substitution that will take the place of man. And so the cross became the place where the substitutionary sacrifice that was required for the sin of man to be taken away was provided. So at the cross, a mystery took place. The sinner was removed, and the righteous God substituted him, so that instead of killing you, God killed himself in your place. And it was logically calculated as though you were the one who died. Because within the context of atonement, there is what we call expiation, and there is what we call propitiation. In expiation, sin must be washed away. In propitiation, the anger of God must be met. And so when God wanted to balance expiation and propitiation, what happened was that death was a must for sinner. So God died on the behalf of man. But when God was on the cross, God punished God. The punishment that God would have put on man to satisfy God's anger, God put that punishment on God. So while God was suffering, God was being satisfied. While God was in pain, God was being happy. Because on one side, the only way I can have peace with the man was to kill him. So God put the pain of death upon Jesus. So by implication, God was punishing himself for you so that you will not die. And when Jesus was dying, the blood that came out of him became the token that washed away your sin. So while Jesus was on the cross, he was in the cross for you so that he took your pain. Then the blood that came out of him, he carried that blood and washed you so that you can be purified from sin. So it was in the cross that judgment was passed. But at the same time, it was on the cross that mercy was revealed. I hope somebody can understand me tonight. I hope somebody can get it tonight. I hope somebody will catch it tonight. The mystery is robust. How God decided to become man, only God knew how it was possible. But that's why he's called God. When he became man, the cross was the only place where he could take the place of man. Because the fallen man was a criminal. The fallen man was a murderer. The fallen man was a liar. The fallen man was a thief. All he deserved was death. But you see, when God wanted to kill man, there was a contradiction in God. The wrath of God said, the wages of sin is death. So man must die. When God wanted to kill man, the mercy of God said, mercy prevails over judgment. So on one side, God wanted to kill the sinner. On another side, God could not kill the sinner. Because while his wrath said, kill him, his mercy said, don't kill him. It was impossible to reconcile. So the love of God began to speak. The love of God was what motivated God to step down from his throne. Was what motivated God to take off the garment of divinity. Was what motivated God to enter the womb of a woman. The love of God was what made the angels worship forever and ever, to leave the throne of worship, to enter the womb of a woman, to suffer there for 9 months. God became hungry. God became vulnerable. Love was the one talking, because there was a contradiction. Wrath said die. Mercy said don't die. The only way to balance the equation was that God had to come in. And God came in as a man. So the Bible said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So within the context of love, God balanced wrath. God balanced mercy. Wrath said kill him. So in Christ, God killed me. In Christ, God killed you. Mercy said leave him. So in Christ, God did not kill you. In Christ, God did not kill me. Yet you and I died in Christ. The only way that would have been possible was by the cross. So when Jesus hung on the cross, that was the revelation of God's mercy. That was the revelation of God's judgment. That was the revelation of God's love. Because wrath said die, he died there. Mercy said don't die, you were included inside him, so you escaped death. And love said somebody has to step in, so God stepped in by himself. He couldn't have called any other person to step in. So the cross is a mystery. It balances wrath, mercy, and love. And all of that put together is the wisdom of God. You know why? Because when Jesus hung on the cross, Satan thought he had defeated him. He didn't know that in dying, he won. He said if the princes of this world had known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. They thought when he hung there, he was helpless. He wasn't helpless. It wasn't the cross that held him. He held the cross. Because the cross could not nail him. He said, this commandment I have received from my Father. I have the power to lay down my life and to take it up. So when he was on the cross, he appeared vulnerable, but he was not vulnerable. He was defining love. That although you deserve to die, I will die for you. He was defining judgment. That God can never excuse sin. So the sinner must die. He was defining mercy. That God cannot kill his own. So God has to take the place of his own. It was a mystery. This is what distinguishes Christianity from other religions. You know why people of other religions are confused? They don't know what to do about their sin. So they say, on the last day, if your good outweigh your sin, you will go to paradise. It's a lie. If I make bread for you, and I put flour and cement, and say the flour is more than the cement, will you eat it? The standard of God is 100% righteousness. If sin is 1%, it's compromised. So every religion of the world is confused. They don't know what to do about their sins. But when you come into Christianity, we know that God will not overlook sin. Every sinner must die. But we also know that in Jesus Christ, all of us were included. So when Jesus died, I died. And we knew that that was the revelation of God's love. Because God could not afford to kill me, even though he couldn't overlook my sin. So he died for me. And so his mercy and his judgment was balanced. This is why if you don't come out of the cross, there will be no Christianity. Christianity is not a better life. Christianity is not a changed life. Christianity is an exchanged life. He took your life so that you will take his. He took your sin so that you will take his righteousness. He took your sickness so that you will take his health. He took your failure so that you will take his success. In Christianity, we are not trying to be better. We have been made righteous. We are understanding it. The journey of Christianity was initiated at the cross, but consummated at the resurrection. If the cross did not come, the purpose of God would not have found expression. Hope you know that your existence created a challenge in the spirit realm. The first heaven and earth that were created had only spirits. The first governor of the earth was a spirit. He was called Lucifer, son of the morning. It was spirits that governed the first earth. But they rebelled against God. And so the earth was judged. And so when you study Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, the Bible said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then verse 2, it said the earth was void. But Jeremiah 4:23 told us why. It was judgment that made the earth to become void. The first governor of the earth rebelled against God. When he was judged, the earth was destroyed. So from Genesis 1:3 to 30, God recreated the earth. Now that the earth was recreated, God needed a new governor. That was why he created you. So you were created to govern the earth. And so the moment God created man, in Genesis 1:26, he said, let them have dominion over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and everything that creepeth upon the face of the earth. So the man was created a governor, a ruler over the earth. The moment the man was created, there was confusion in the spirit realm. Angels were wondering, who is this new species? Demons were wondering, who is this new species? And what amazed the spirits was the fact that every other spirit was going to God. But when God created man, God was coming to man. The Bible said, in the cool of the day, the voice of God came walking in the garden. The angels couldn't understand. Psalm 8 verse 4 said, what is man that you are mindful of him. For us angels, it's an honor to enter your throne room. Now you leave your throne room and you are going to the man. What is this creature? So there was chaos. All the spirits were afraid. And the devil plotted a coup. We have to dethrone this creature. And the only way the devil found to dethrone him was for him to rebel against God. Because there was nothing Satan could do to hurt man. Go read the book of Genesis chapter 1, 2 and 3. There was no earthquake. There was no sickness. There was no poverty. Everything was in order. There was no cold. Mosquito could not bite the man. Why? Everything was under his authority. Satan was on earth, but he couldn't hurt man. All the demons were here. They couldn't hurt man. Because if the man sits in his governmental throne, no spirit can hurt him. The only spirit that could hurt him was God. And God won't hurt him. This is why, although the devil was on earth, there was no sickness. Go read Genesis 1, Genesis 2, Genesis 3. The man didn't need drugs. It's not because Satan was not present. Satan was present. There was no earthquake. There was no landslide. No wild animal was present. The lion didn't eat anybody. Everything was under his authority. When the devil saw that power, it shook him. And so the devil said, we must dethrone this prince. But when they studied, there was nothing they could do to dethrone him, except for him to choose to rebel against God. Because God had told him, the day you disobey me by eating the tree that carries good and evil, you will die. So the devil lured him to disobey God. The moment he fell, a law was activated. And the law says, whoever you yield yourself servant to obey, you have become his servant. So the earth that man should rule over, he became a servant on earth. That was when sickness began. That was when death came. That was when earthquake started. That was when landslide started. That was when the earth went out of control. Because he said, they know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. I have said, ye are gods, because you are the children of the Most High. He said, but you will fall like one of the princes. And the moment you fall, he said, the earth will be out of course. And so the fall of the man was what made for the fall of the earth. And so after the man fell, the only thing that was available was judgment. The wages of sin is death. It was death that necessitated the cross. Because God didn't want the man to die. He has an agenda. It was that reason that God introduced substitution. He test-run it in the Old Testament, where they were using animals for atonement. But he perfected it in Christ. So in Christ, Jesus took the place of the fallen man, so that the fallen man will take the place of Jesus. So when we say after the cross, there is only one thing you find, is Christ. After the cross, there's only one thing you find, the new creation. Because everything about the old creation, the cross killed it. Everything about the old creation, the cross stopped it. So anybody who passes through the cross emerges as a carrier of Christ. If you come out of the cross, although you are from Zimbabwe, but you are not just a Zimbabwean, when you come out of the cross, it's now Christ in me, the hope of glory. When you come out of the cross, you are no longer Nigerian. No, God planted you in Nigeria. As a patriotic citizen, you will impact Nigeria. But you must understand that you are more than a Nigerian. You are more than a Zimbabwean. You are a new creation. You now carry Christ. You reveal Christ. You manifest Christ. After the cross is not religion. After the cross is Christ. Somebody shout. I was created a governor. I fell. All I deserved was death. But God in his mercy, God in his love, refused for me to die. And he came and took my place. And the only place where that possibility could happen was on the cross. So on the cross, Jesus hung there for Michael. On the cross, Jesus hung there for you. The picture on the cross is you in Christ. He hung there on your behalf. He is not the criminal. You were the criminal. He is not the murderer. You were the murderer. He is not the liar. You were the liar. The Bible said he made him that knew no sin to become sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God. So before the cross, there is nothing I can do to be like God. Even if I try to be good, even if I try to be righteous, the Bible said my righteousness is a filthy rag. But after the cross, because of what Jesus did, I become like God. Because of what Jesus did, I become the righteousness of God. Because of what Jesus did, I become an expression of a dimension of God. After the cross, it's not a religion. After the cross, it's the new creation.